Hi there, I'm Joey.
I'm Jacob.
And we are watching Star Trek for the first time. Last time on Star Trek, it was The Big Goodbye. And you know what? I'm actually mad at myself for not bringing up like a sort of like piece of the action comparison during that video. I totally forgot to.
That's a decent, if not apt, comparison. I could definitely see that.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just in the whole like mob mentality of the whole episode, but it was I think it was sort of like in the way that the writers were sort of tackling how ridiculous that episode actually was. So up until a certain point, that is, of course. But yeah, it was a good time. It was a genuinely good time. But today we're watching an episode called Datalore.
Datalore?
Datalore. All one word, Datalore. I would assume it's about data.
That sounds like it's about data, which I'm fine with. I like data.
Oh shit, by the way, speaking of things I forgot to bring up, last video we officially entered 1988 in Star Trek. Yeah. So now we're even closer to the end of the 80s.
See, I like when you tell me these things because that means we're this much closer to World War III.
Exactly.
In Star Trek timeline.
Exactly. It's really close as far as Star Trek is concerned. But yeah, all right. I guess we're gonna get into post-episode thoughts in a second. Be sure to join us then. We're about to watch Datalore. And with that, we are officially halfway through the season. 13 down, 13 to go.
Gosh, really?
That's fun. And also with that, let's talk some lists, shall we?
Oh, do we have lists?
So first off, it took me a while, but I gathered some lists. We tried to do a fan put together list from viewers of the channel, but we just don't have that many people that participated in the Google Doc, Google form, so it's fine. We'll try again with the next show. So I put together some other lists that I found online, and also one from a personal friend of mine named John, who I play D&D with. They lovingly submitted a top 10 list of their own, and also, and the other reason we're talking about this right now, submitted individual top 3 lists for each season, so as to not exclude any seasons from these lists. Specifically, of course, season 1, which isn't as well loved, obviously, but they do say that the best of season 1 is in fact Datalore, and so far I'm inclined to agree. So
I would be inclined to agree as well.
Yeah, there is also in one of our lists, I think it's the Screen Rant list that I have here, where no one has gone before at number 10, which is absolutely baffling. But I put together these lists after we watched that episode. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, let's actually talk about the episode though. That was fucking great. First off, I really, really loved that. Brent Spiner could be both creepy and really charming at the same time. I really love this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's so good. I also noticed Troy was totally missing from the episode, which is interesting.
Yeah, just completely absent.
Yeah, not even like in the background or anything. But
it's fine.
A great episode for Wesley Crusher as a character. Actually, I really loved him in this.
It's kind of like in universe he's reached peaked fuck this, are you guys gonna listen to me or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, well, seriously, like for a show that, you know, much like TOS hasn't really had like any specific like character arcs to follow from episode to episode, I think Wesley has actually been like kind of the only one, it seems, at least to me, because like most of our character arcs were established like in the pilot and then touched on in the odd episode here and there later on. But Crusher has actually not Crusher. Well, there are two Crushers. Wesley, specifically Crusher, has been actually developing throughout certain episodes, and seeing him actually really shine in this is great. Him being the one to figure it out. I did joke at one point actually that basically the whole thing is that there's this sort of conflict between Crusher and Picard because Wesley figures out that Lore has impersonated Data, and Picard is like kind of like writing him off over it, and Wesley is like, well, no, you're only like writing me off because I'm a kid, whatever. And I kind of joked that like by the end of the episode, Picard better actually be wrong, because if it was like Captain Kirk in the situation, Kirk would be like, you see, I sent you off with your mother because I knew you would figure it out. Like
right?
Some stupid shit like that. But which also is to speak on Picard as a captain and why I think Well, I can't really say who I prefer personally between Kirk and Picard so far. Obviously, having way more experience with Captain Kirk as a character, Picard, I think they're much more willing to portray as a flawed character. Whereas Kirk, I at least think you only ever really saw that in the movies.
I think in any given episode, Captain Kirk was always correct in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, maybe there was the odd exception that I'm kind of blanking on here and there, but yeah, I don't know. Usually, just Kirk was kind of always right, and you just kind of had to accept that.
To the point of the episode, I really liked that this episode's very much about Data and what does it mean for his sense of humanity when you suddenly introduce another one of him, essentially another android that they are literally putting together, and now everyone is suddenly reminded, oh, Mr. Data, you're a robot, right? Like, we need to address this before we could seriously move on with building your brother, essentially.
Mm-hmm. It's just great. I called it out during the episode. It's this great sort of extension of the Spock dynamic in TOS, whereas like a lot of Spock's dynamic with the rest of the crew in TOS, and this extended beyond like just say McCoy. This was like regular people on the ship that were sort of off put by Spock even being there, and sort of viewed him as this other amongst the group. But also, like he was there all the time. He was a high-ranking officer, but like when you really, broke it down, he was different, and people looked at him differently because of that. But now that we're 100 years post TOS, we have sort of expanded on that and been like, okay, well, now that aliens are a more regular part of Starfleet, what is the extension of that? And that is that robots are just part of the crew. They're not just objects you use. These are people here. And when people are reminded of that and confronted with that, it creates some tension, just kind of by how they sort of also mostly subconsciously think of Data.
There is
really fascinating.
It's a great conversation between Data and Picard that really highlights how they think of Data as a person, but Lore as not a person, at least not at that moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because Picard like just sort of like instinctively like calls Lore it, and Data's like,
and Data immediately is like, and Data's like, well, sir, I would qualify under the same category then.
Yeah, I would also be it. Do you also think of me as just a machine? Which actually also in the earlier conversation with like Riker and all them, Picard was like, oh, we are also just machines, electro. I forget how he worded it. Anyway, he's like, we're also machines. Humans are the same basically. Let's talk to Data normally. Yeah. It was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. And I just really enjoyed this. It did kind of devolve into essentially an evil twin brother plotline by the end, which we've definitely seen before in Star Trek, to varying degrees. And I do wish that it had become maybe it had done just a little bit more with its concept. But I mean, if this is the peak of season 1, I'm a little sad, because I would love to see more, knowing that there's still 13 episodes left in the season. But hey, I mean, it was great. I'll take a great episode, and this was in fact great. So
it was a great episode. I really liked the idea. I hope almost we see. I feel like I would know of Data having a brother through public consciousness if he came back more. Yeah. I mean, which tells me he either doesn't, or it's so small potatoes it's not big enough to permeate what is just generally known about Star Trek.
I guess that about does it. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to join us next time when we continue Star Trek: The Next Generation. Until then, this has been Joey Morgan.
Jacob.
Goodbye.